trolling Senator Elizabeth Warren as a snake, and in post after post, labeling Mayor Pete Buttigieg a rat. Two victims of this tell CNN they were so afraid of the online attacks they faced, they don't even want us to describe the circumstances for fear it would start up again. They both just questioned the politics of Bernie Sanders in a public setting, and their personal lives were exposed and attacked.
Well, just what Nick said, I think that's right. I mean, there is no Democratic establishment anymore. There's not even a Democratic Party anymore. The Democratic Party is a meaningless notion that the party, like the Republican Party, has been hollowed out and privatized to a large extent. There are Democratic elites, and so when we're talking about the Democratic establishment, we're really talking about a bunch of people that Nick also does well, which really means Democratic donors.
This is the most important election in the history of our country.
This election is the most important in the modern history of this country.
The election in 2020, without hyperbole, is going to be the most important election this country has undergone in over 100 years. Not a joke.
This November's elections are more important than any I can remember in my lifetime, and that includes when I was on the ballot.
There are just 8 days left in what is the most important election of our lifetime.
Where did you guys come to a conclusion about why Clinton had such a hard time just owning that she did something wrong with the email server?
You know, I know that Russia and other forces would love us to have a debate. This is exactly what they want. They want us to have a debate about the internal structure of Hillary's campaign, what's true, what's not true. And I'm just not going to play that. I'm sorry.
Yes, we came, we saw, he died.
I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It's like we had entire training courses. It reminds you of the glory of the American experiment.
You know, people have said, if you look at, for example, the heat that ended up around the bend the knee, Colin Kaepernick. Mm-hmm. Many smart people have said it actually was not a thing. The Russian bots started taking out. Yes.
But I saw my mom. My mom is the strongest woman I know.
She should
this
be
is
running.
Not about.
If you're like me, one of the millions suffering from pain caused by migraine, Nurtec ODT may help. It's the only medication that can treat a migraine when it strikes and prevent migraine attacks.
Trump and the Republicans lose on Tuesday, and if they lose badly, it's not going to be because of the left, whatever that means. It's not because of the 50 Antifa black mask guys who roam around the United States breaking windows and committing mayhem, most of whom are probably paid police informers.
Most of whom are probably paid police informers.
Rudy Giuliani, there's only three things he mentioned in a sentence, a noun and a verb and 9/11. I mean...
I'm going to try to get through this. Thank you for what you did 3 years ago today.
And I went to Wall Street in December of 2007, before the big crash that we had, and I basically said, cut it out.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. If we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President. Bye.
This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever.
He is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
I can't do it.
We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. And thing sucks.
In 5, 4, 3.
Citizens of the internet, it's been a rough morning for me. I just set up X, and so I'm now live streaming to X and Rumble because I was suspended from YouTube this week for medical misinformation.
Yo, we here now. Stupid.
And it's incredibly crazy because, well, it's not incredibly crazy. It's typical of YouTube's bullshit. And I thought YouTube had been getting better lately, but basically, to make a long story short, I did a live stream a couple weeks ago. And when I do these live streams, I cut them up into segments like everyone does. And I uploaded a segment of Theo Vaughn talking to Joe Rogan about RFK Jr. And I do kind of want to show you, if I still have it on here. Let me see if I have it on here. I want to show you the thumbnail, because I think that is what got me in trouble. I don't have it on me right now. I'm going to find it and show it to you. Anyway, the thumbnail is a picture of RFK Jr. with both middle fingers up in front of the White House. So the reason I think that YouTube suspended me because of the thumbnail is because the live stream that I pulled the clip from is still up. And the Joe Rogan clip, the Joe Rogan episode that I pulled the clips that I was discussing from is still up. And I personally didn't say anything at all related to medicine. I didn't say anything about I didn't say anything about COVID. I just played some clips of Rogan and Theo Vaughn talking about RFK Jr. and YouTube suspended me. So it's thick out there. But today I wanted to talk about a couple different things. The first thing I wanted to discuss here is audience capture. So this is episode 82 of the Politics Show. The subtitle being The Elephant in the Room, and you're going to see what I mean by that. This elephant in the room applies mostly to conservatives right now, but we'll get into it in just a second. I want to start with this response I got to a video, and I thought it was interesting because this guy basically said, "Straw man around every corner, unsubscribed." So this was a response to my last stream titled "Defenders of the Status Quo," and basically this guy came at me with this kind of vague straw man thing, and I said, I don't want people who make vague generalizations they cannot back up in my audience. If you had a good argument, you would have made it. Bye. And this has been my take since the beginning of starting to do this, that if people have beefs with anything that I'm saying, bring them directly to me. Let's argue based on the merits of something and not just these vague generalizations about nothing. What straw man? This guy doesn't have anything valid to say at all. He's just like, "Oh, you're a straw man, so I'm unsubscribing." Good for you. Take your ball and go home, you little bitch. So one of the things that's great for me anyway about being unbound here at X and Rumble is I don't really have to walk on eggshells. I believe that my YouTube suspension will be up in a few days and then I'll start posting there again. But at least for now, I am free to talk about whatever I want, which is a comforting feeling. So I want to start today with our actual subject matter by talking about Trump's nominees. And, it's a mixed bag, I think, for the most part, but there has been a lot of encouraging stuff happening. And as I said in the last stream I did, Defenders of the Status Quo, any of the people that are freaking out, when you see the corporate press and these kind of like establishment figures freaking out about a Trump nominee, you know that it's a good one. And that's just, a fact. So let's start here today with Jay Battacharya. And if you don't know, Jay Battacharya was one of the few Harvard-educated scientists who spoke out against lockdowns and a lot of the stuff that happened during the pandemic. He was also widely censored by his own government. And so to see him at the top of the NIH in Fauci's old job it's a very, very beautiful thing. I don't care whether you like Trump or not. This is a comeuppance that I don't see how you can't be happy about this. So let's play a clip of Jay Battacharya and remind you why this guy is so hated by establishment forces.
Stanford professor, physician who specializes in this stuff, seems like he'd be the last person you'd censor, correct?
I mean, the key thing here, Tucker, that I think that folks need to know, what they wanted to do, and this I think is government actors and also old media, old owners of Twitter, they wanted to create this illusion of consensus about the science.
That's right.
That didn't actually exist. They wanted to fool people into thinking that we were following the science, when in fact there was a robust debate among scientists about what the right thing to do was. And the consequence is schools closed, businesses closed, unvaccinated people lost their jobs even because of mandates, even though none of the science none of the persuasive science actually supported any of those positions. People suffered as a consequence of this censorship, and of course, it's an abstract violation of my civil rights, my First Amendment rights. But that's not the important thing. The important thing is that American people were denied a debate, an honest debate. And I believe that had that honest debate taken place, none of those policies would have been put in place, and all of that suffering could have been avoided.
So one of the things he touched on there is, and I love that Jade, when you hear him talk, he always points out that it wasn't just him that was censored during all this. He's a credentialed, educated doctor or scientist. Not scientist, sorry, doctor. But I love that he's bringing up the aspect of this, that everyone was affected by this, not just him. Because I remember being in California, there was a woman who had her business shut down. And this was a viral video. I wish I had pulled it up. I just thought about it. But this woman was complaining that around her there were Hollywood food kitchens set up for a film set, but her business had to be closed down because somehow Hollywood got what was the essential workers classification. I wonder how they did that. Interesting. So another, just to keep kind of plowing through these, another one of the nominees that Trump picked that I think is very favorable is Lori Chavez-DeRemer for Labor, and she's a Republican from Oregon. But of course, a lot of the establishment figures came out against her. But look at who some of her unlikely supporters are. So here's Cenk Uygur from Young Turks. And here's what he has to say. Okay, we have our first real fight of populist versus establishment. Okay. First real fight, Cenk. Come on. We're going to go deep into the weeds of this in just a minute. But Cenk finally woke up a little bit. I think the writing was on the wall. And it's been interesting to watch his transformation since Trump won this last election. He woke up and went, oh, shit, I've been totally wrong about everything for the last 4 years. Unlike Jimmy Dore, who you guys argued with and tried to cancel. I'm not a fan of Cenk Uygur, but I think, he's a good bellwether for people on the left to some extent, just like Bill Maher is. Obviously they're both a little bit center left, I guess you could say, which these days is center right. Let's be honest, the Democrats are a right-wing party. But anyway, here's what he says. Real fight of populist versus establishment. I'm officially supporting President Trump's pick of Rep. Lori Chavez-DeRemer for Labor Secretary. All Murdoch media outlets, Chamber of Commerce, Never Trumpers, and establishment Republicans are against her. And that's the interesting thing about these picks with Trump is they're kind of not all in the same vein. And even the people that he's picking that I don't think are good, like Marco Rubio, for example, I think if you watch Marco Rubio's career, this is a guy who pays fealty to power regardless. So, the fact that Trump appointed him to that seat, he's still taking orders from the big guy. And he also vacated a seat in Florida, which I thought was kind of a interesting chess move, because now they have an open Senate seat in Florida. And as you know, the Trump establishment now is very entrenched in Florida. So here's another great endorsement for Lori Chavez-DeRemer. This is from the AFL-CIO. And they say Lori Chavez-DeRemer has built a pro-labor record in Congress, but Donald Trump is the president-elect of the United States, not Rep. Chavez-DeRemer. AFL-CIA, AFL-CIA. That was a Freudian slip if there ever was. AFL-CIO President Liz Shuler's statement from Trump's USDOL. So let's read this. This might not have been quite as favorable as I originally thought. AFL-CIO President Liz Shuler released the following statement. Lori Chavez-DeRemer has built a pro-labor record in Congress, including as one of the only 3 Republicans to co-sponsor Protecting the Right to Organize Act, and one of 8 Republicans to co-sponsor the Public Service Freedom to Negotiate Act. But Donald Trump is the president-elect of the United States, not Rep. Chavez-DeRemer, and it remains to be seen what she will be permitted to do as Secretary of Labor in an administration with a dramatically anti-worker agenda. Okay, that's fair. Clearly, this woman hasn't been paying attention to anything that J.D. Vance or Donald Trump has said, but that is fair. Let's see what happens when the rubber meets the road. There's a tendency from everyone right now to dunk on people who voted for Trump, especially on the left. I see this a lot. Oh, you dumb MAGA people, bro. You see, Trump's a nominating Zionist. And it's okay, guys. Okay. I wish you had this energy when Biden was nominating people, because you definitely didn't. Pull up clips and show me if I'm wrong. But by the same token, it's fair. We should all be critical of power, but also let's let things kind of transfer. The guy's not even in office yet, and you can already see the forces of evil aligning to tank any kind of a real measurable change from happening. And if you paid attention to what happened when Trump won the first time, on their way out, the Obama administration put in the last couple months where they still had the power to do this. They put in all kinds of terrible shit. In the NDAA, they put a thing that basically removed the Smith-Mundt Act, so that the U.S. propaganda arms could be used internally on our own citizens. Just stuff like that. They did a whole bunch of ridiculous stuff. They also put elections under the Department of Homeland Security. After Trump won, they went, oh shit, we need to be able to change this if we can. And then 2020 was, I'm not going to say that I believe it was quote unquote rigged, but there was definitely some shenanigans when you look at the numbers and the fact that we were all locked down and all that kind of stuff. There's definitely, just the way it even transpired was weird. So these are a couple of the recent nominees that Trump has picked for these offices. Now we're going to get to what I think is probably the most important and consequential one, and that is Mr. Kash Patel. And so this is the announcement from today. And let's just read this real quick. News: Donald Trump nominates conspiracy theorist Kash Patel to lead the FBI. Yikes. So right off the bat, Kash Patel is a good choice. And Trump says, I'm proud to announce that Kash Patel will serve as the next director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Kash is a brilliant lawyer, investigator, and America First fighter who has spent his career exposing corruption, defending justice, and protecting the American people. He played a pivotal role in uncovering the Russia hoax, standing as an advocate for truth, accountability, and the Constitution. Kash did an incredible job during my first term, where he served as Chief of Staff at the Department of Defense, Deputy Director of National Intelligence, and Senior Director for Counterterrorism at the National Security Council. Kash has also tried over 60 jury trials. This FBI will end the growing crime epidemic in America, dismantle the migrant criminal gangs, and stop the evil scourge of human and drug trafficking across the border. Kash will work under our great Attorney General, Pam Bondi, to bring back fidelity, bravery, and integrity to the FBI. So that is interesting, the stuff Trump says. And some of it I agree with, but also with Kash Patel, he didn't really bring up the important stuff, which is censorship. And of course, and I'm sure he's not bringing that up on purpose. But I want to show you, this is the hysteria of one of my favorite accounts that I like to refer to as RAT, R-A-T, Republicans Against Trump. So check this out. This is good stuff.
FBI's footprint has gotten so freaking big, and the biggest problem the FBI has come out of its intel shops. I'd break that component out of it. I'd shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one and reopening the next day as a museum of the deep state. And I'd take the 7,000 employees that work in that building and send them across America to chase down criminals. Go be cops. You're cops. Go be cops. Go chase down murderers and drug dealers and violent offenders.
So this is interesting too, because how many of those people are just sitting in an office monitoring Twitter all day or monitoring Facebook all day?
You need 7,000 people there for. Same thing with DOJ. What are all these people doing here? Looking for their next government promotion, looking for their next fancy government title, looking for their parachute out of government. So while you're bringing in the right people, you also have to shrink government. The FBI's...
I love how, too, this is, again, when Republicans Against Trump, they post this clip as if it's like people are going to be like, oh, wow, this guy's terrible. No, everything he said is round of applause shit right there. That's incredible. That's the kind of wrecking ball that we need to take to the current government, that it's just overblown and full of bullshit. Whether you're liberal or conservative, there is so much. I mean, if you're liberal, you can point to waste in the military budget. If you're conservative, you can point to DEI bullshit that they're spending billions or millions of dollars on. There's definitely a wrecking ball that needs to be taken to that. And a guy like Kash Patel is the kind of guy that I want in there. So again, you can always tell whether or not these are good picks by the response to them. And this is a tweet from David Frum that I retweeted. And I said, it's stuff like this that gives me hope for the Trump administration. The absolute worst people are shitting themselves. And this is David Frum. We are headed towards U.S. constitutional crisis, vastly bigger than Watergate. Another fake fucking bullshit scandal that was manufactured by Naval Intelligence Officer Bob Woodward to get Nixon out of office. Now, why did they want to get Nixon out of office? I don't know. Could it be because he was trying to make peace with China and Russia? Could it be because he was pushing for a national health care plan? The history that we're taught on Nixon is always just, he's a crook, he's a criminal. And all this shit about Trump that's happened over the last couple of years has definitely opened my eyes to what they do to anyone who opposes, permanent Washington on any level. They either try to kill them, try to put them in jail, or they just smear them in the media to the point where they don't have a career anymore. All three of those things have been done to Trump. So to keep moving here, I want to show you one of my favorite David Frum clips, and this is my pinned tweet, and I think this is the reason that David Frum is shitting his pants over Kash Patel as director of the FBI.
Lose on Tuesday. And if they lose badly, it's not going to be because of the left, whatever that means. It's not because of the 50 Antifa black mask guys who roam around the United States breaking windows and committing mayhem, most of whom are probably paid police informers.
Now watch this. Here you have a guy in a helmet with a Trump bumper sticker on the back of his helmet. Okay, who does that? Who is riding around on their bike with a Trump bumper sticker on the back of their helmet so that, and then this guy's breaking a window. Violent insurrectionist indeed. So this is footage, like crowd shot footage from January 6th. Now here comes a red-hatted MAGA terrorist to attack a cop. clearly a cop breaking a window at the Capitol. So there you have it. David Frum is shaking in his boots. So here's another great tweet from your boy Matthew Iglesias, one of the greatest reporters of all time. He posts a picture from Bill Barr's book. Bill Barr, of course, former Trump head of, I think he was the head of the DOJ, if I remember correctly. But check this out. This is what this says. The president then started advancing the idea of appointing Kash Patel as deputy FBI director. Patel, who was completing a stint as, I can't read that because it's deputy acting director, national intelligence. Rick Grinnell had been a staffer to Congressman Devin Nunes and had served briefly on the NSC staff at the White House under Trump. I categorically opposed making Patel deputy FBI director. I told Marc Meadows it would happen over my dead body. So there you go. Bill Barr, one of the biggest pieces of crap from the first Trump administration, who was a neocon Bush era holdover. He's very opposed to this guy, which means he's a great choice. So let's see. In the first place, all leadership positions in the Bureau, except the director of FBI, have always been FBI agents. They've all gone through the same agent training and have had broad experience in the field and at the headquarters. So they've all been taught the game of, how to suck each other off and get to the top and not say anything that's going to endanger your funding, basically. Someone with no background as an agent would never be able to command the respect necessary to run the day-to-day operations of the Bureau. Furthermore, Patel had virtually no experience that would qualify him to serve at the highest level of the world's preeminent law enforcement agency. The Bureau had already had an exceptionally able deputy, Dave Bodick, in whom I had total confidence. He was a strong leader with high integrity. He was indispensable as far as I was concerned. So there you go. Bill Barr, one of the worst people alive, is against Kash Patel, which means one of Trump's better picks. So here's another piece of evidence for you. Brian Stelter, FBI Director Chris Wray has 3 years remaining in his 10-year term and would have to resign or be fired to create a vacancy. The FBI says Wray remains focused on the men and women of the FBI, the people we do the work with, and the people we do the work for. So Trump's going to have to fire Christopher Wray. I will never cry enough tears for Christopher Wray of the FBI. And so just to kind of wrap this up nicely for you, this is a tweet from Mike Benz about what the FBI has been up to recently. And this guy, Gaino Fauci, says, can't wait to see Kash Patel get rid of this on day one at the FBI and fire anyone involved. FBI documents associate internet slang like based and red pill with extremism. The doc listed key terms associated with involuntarily celibate and radically or ethnically motivated violent extremism. So the FBI is obviously kind of a joke. And take a wrecking ball to it. I mean, I'm not saying dismantle the FBI or defund the FBI or any of that kind of stuff. That's a whole other debate. But it's clearly an overblown, out of control agency that needs to be reined in. And I think that's what people voted for. And hopefully that's what they get if all these neocunts, aka Democrats or neocons in rainbow capes, don't stop it from happening. So the Kash Patel nomination and the FBI censoring the internet is a nice segue into our next segment, which is about anti-Semitism, one of the foremost problems in the United States today. If you listen to idiots. So the elephant in the room, to me, which is kind of the theme of this entire podcast, is conservatives, like I just showed you with Kash Patel, have been fierce advocates for freedom of speech against, having to walk on brittle eggshells around trans people who deserve safe spaces. And, you can't say a woman is a woman because it might offend trans people, or you can't, say this is that, or, you can't say certain things because it offends people. So conservatives have been, rightfully outraged for the last several years about the censorship industrial complex that is working to, delegitimize anyone with valid criticisms of power. And you see this with January 6th, like I just showed you these clips. But now they're using the January 6th playbook on critics of Israel. And I want to get into this next piece about Trump's, let's start with Trump's nominee for DOJ, which replaced Matt Gaetz, who I think would have been far better, but we'll see how things play out. But this is Aaron Mate and Judge Napolitano talking about Pam Bondi, Trump's nominee to head the DOJ.
The designee to become Attorney General of the United States, who made some horrific comments a little over a year ago on the freedom of speech. When you and I talked about this at great length, Aaron, and of course I admire you, not because we agree with each other, but because of the stand you have taken in defense of the right of students to express their opinions, whether popular or unpopular, particularly on the campus of Columbia University. She said these students should be taken out of the country and subjected to FBI interviews. Now, when
Now, what's interesting about this type of censorship, the type that Pam Bondi here is supporting, is Democrats support it too. You have Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who accused RFK Jr. of being an anti-Semite, and several of the Democratic, the core of the Democratic caucus is like, oh, we got to fight to stop anti-Semitism.
Chris and I first saw this, we thought somebody made this up. No, she actually said it. Here she is, cut number 14.
Whether they're here as Americans or if they're here on student visas and they're out there saying, I support Hamas, you and I have seen that on all of these television shows. Frankly, they need to be taken out of our country, or the FBI needs to be interviewing them right away when they're saying, I support Hamas, I am Hamas. That's not saying I support all these poor Palestinians who are trapped in Gaza. That's not what they're saying. So I think their student visas need to be revoked. I think we need to reinstate President Trump's travel ban immediately. There's a lot of things that can be done to stop this. But yeah, the anti-Semitism that is rampant throughout this country now. And it's truly, truly heartbreaking to see what's happening to all of our Jewish friends in this country.
This woman will soon be directly in charge of the Justice Department, and indirectly.
And I just want to, pause and take a quick sidebar for you to show you why Pam Bondi was nominated to this position. Here's a shot of Pam Bondi in a bikini, and she's looking pretty stacked, So my take is that's probably why she was the second choice. Trump is like, oh, I want a DOJ who looks great in a swimsuit. Anyway, back to Napolitano.
In charge of the FBI, whom she wants to interrogate students over their opinions. She obviously believes the government can evaluate the content of free speech, the very purpose for which the First Amendment was written to prevent the government from doing.
It's a real tragedy. We don't have a major party in this country that is committed to the principle of free speech, which, support the free speech of everyone, especially those that you disagree with. If you don't support free speech for people that they disagree with, you don't support free speech. And Democrats, have become synonymous with cracking down on free speech because of their efforts to police the internet, the whole campaign to label anyone who disagrees with them as a Russian asset and to silence them accordingly. A whole lot of
what they're doing to Tulsi Gabbard right now.
Censorship was also conducted around health issues because in the aftermath of of COVID. And that gave Democrats deservedly a reputation for being against free speech, which Trump and the Republicans have exploited. But now they turn around and are talking about using that same censorship regime against people who express support for Palestinian rights, including Palestine's right to resist.
So again, this is a pretty much black and white issue. You either support free speech or you don't. You have to support free speech you don't like. And this is the elephant in the room for conservatives, because they largely won a majority running on free speech and, a complete shift away from the last 4 years of, Orwellian censorship and just absolutely stupid policies. I like to play this clip a lot.
But ain't that America for you and me? Ain't that America?
So, Aaron, let me let Aaron finish here before we continue down this road.
People have the right to resist military occupation, and you're not anti-Semitic or pro-Hamas or whatever it is if you express support for that. And even if you are pro-Hamas, you have every right to speak in this country. That's the whole point.
And see, I think the thing that conservatives lose here too is the January 6th op was literally, they're using the same playbook they used during these Palestine protests. There are 1000% fake agitators in these crowds pretending to be anti-Israel or anti-Jewish. The protests are anti-Israel, let's be honest. But a large majority of these protesters are Jewish. So, the idea that they're anti-Semitic is a joke. Anyway, let me let Aaron finish here.
You see the danger of having an attorney general who has a simplistic view. Everything is either black or white. She doesn't understand the subtleties of free speech, and she has the power to dispatch FBI agents to the Columbia campus to harass these kids.
Yeah, and there's some very worrying developments. There's a new measure in Congress that would basically give the Treasury Department the unilateral authority to strip any group of its nonprofit status that the Treasury Department deems to be supportive of terrorism. Which means, like some bureaucrats in Washington could decide that people supporting Palestinian rights are now all of a sudden supporters of terrorists, as so many pro-Palestinians are falsely accused of doing, and then take away their nonprofit status. Both parties support this. There's bipartisan support for that.
One Republican.
So Pam Bondi, listen, she may not make sense, but she does look incredible in a bikini. So to keep moving here, I want to show you there is a group called Stop Antisemitism. And let's just real quick educate ourselves on who Stop Antisemitism is, because it's a very interesting group. So Stop Antisemitism is a privately funded advocacy group describing itself as grassroots watchdog organization focused on combating anti-Semitism by exposing individuals perceived by the group as anti-Semitic. So they're not any, they're just a privately funded group that accuses people of being racists, is basically what this says. Social media influencer Leora Rez founded Stop Antisemitism as stopantisemitism.org in October 18th to monitor and expose online anti-Semitism. Rez was born in Kiev, Ukraine. Imagine that. Then in the Soviet Union, wait a minute. She was born in Kiev, Ukraine, then in the Soviet Union. So she was born in Ukraine and in the Soviet Union? That's a really interesting line right there. She was born in Kiev, Ukraine, then in the Soviet Union, where her family experienced anti-Semitism. She started her social media career in 2013 under the name Jewish Chick. So this lady's name, this lady's Russian, first of all, which is kind of an interesting sidebar. Her full name is Rezichenko. And here's Max Blumenthal kind of educating you on what this is all about right here. Check this out. So Max says, Leora Reznichenko Very Russian name. The demented stalker who founded Stop Antisemitism has deleted her entire personal account after her history of racist rants came to light and has turned her other account, Leora Rez, into private. This Adam Milstein-funded psycho has harassed me for years. So here's her tweet at Ilhan Omar, and Ilhan Omar says, "If your freedom relies on my oppression, then neither of us are free." That's a fair statement. And here's Leora Reznichenko of Stop Antisemitism saying, "Niggers, please." I don't know if it's okay for her to say that, or even me to say that, but I'm reading a quote, so I would never say that to a black woman because I'm not a racist. So, Anyway, here is just to keep going down this rabbit hole. Remember, this woman is Russian, Ukrainian. That Wikipedia sentence is very interesting because it says she was born in Ukraine, then in Russia. So maybe she lived in Russia. Maybe they just forgot to put lived. But it does seem like they're trying to obfuscate the fact that she may have been born in Russia because there is insane Russian hysteria right now that's being ginned up by the same people that are ginning up these anti-Semitism claims. So when we think about Russia and Israel, we think about election influence, right? And here's Marco and Jones says, LOL, when everyone is focused on secret Russian electoral interference in plain sight. And here's AIPAC tweeting, so far, 190 AIPAC-backed candidates have won their election tonight. 190. We are proud to stand with pro-Israel Democrats and Republicans to strengthen bipartisan support for the U.S.-Israel relationship. Well, isn't that special? Isn't that just special?
That's beautiful, man.
So to keep going here, Max then has this tweet that is outlining our long history of our relationship here. And he says, watching this harrowing footage from Israel's 1982 massacres in Beirut and how the MSM covered it at the time offers a complete contrast from CNN's tightly controlled coverage of the Gaza genocide, monopolized by the Tel Aviv triad of Tapper, Bash, and Blitzer. And let me just show you a little bit of this. We're not going to watch the whole thing because it's a little long, but this is very telling. This is from 1982, and this is mainstream media.
This is the CBS Evening News. Bob Schieffer reporting Israel unleashed another massive air attack on Palestinian guerrilla targets in Lebanon today.
From the sky, the howl of Israeli jets, bombing and bombing.
Tonight, Israel has never been closer to nor more in control of an Arab capital.
In the summer of 1982, Israel
One of the things the mainstream media didn't speak about back in these days is how all the bombs that they're dropping are bombs that we paid for.
invaded neighboring Lebanon in an attempt to drive the Palestinian Liberation Organization out of its encampments on the southern border with Israel. Israeli officials justified the attack as a defensive action required to take out terrorists. But as the story played out on American television, a different narrative began to emerge, one that presented Israel as the aggressor.
What in the world is going on? Israel's security problem on its border is 50 miles to the south. What's an Israeli army doing here in Beirut? The answer is that we are now dealing with an imperial Israel, which is solving its problems in someone else's country. World opinion be damned.
The Israeli invasion of Lebanon in 1982 was a watershed. It was Israel breaking out beyond its immediate region to aggressively attack another country, and it was a bit of a shock to many people.
Israel was always that gallant little underdog democracy fighting for survival against all the odds. Now the Israelis have annexed East Jerusalem and the Golan Heights, settled down more or less permanently on the West Bank, and occupied close to half of Lebanon. In the interests of self-defense, that gallant little underdog Israel.
So the reason that Hezbollah is so bad is because they drove Israel out of Lebanon. So they're terrorists, of course. But we're not. Definitely. We're the good guys, always.
has suddenly started behaving like the neighborhood bully.
By the time the war was over, the Israeli military would kill 17,000 Lebanese and Palestinians and wound another 30,000, almost all of them civilians.
In West Beirut, hospitals are so taxed with the injured that they have become specialized. This center takes only burn victims of phosphorus shells. Shrapnel cases, concussions, and fractures are directed to other facilities.
This is from
just a few months later, American
40
media coverage
years ago, 42 years ago.
There's been another horrendous turn of events in the Middle East. Hundreds of men, women, and children, perhaps as many as 1,000 people in all, have been massacred in 2 Palestinian refugee camps in West Beirut.
Israel's Lebanese allies, operating with the consent of the Israeli government, had massacred several thousand Palestinian civilians in the refugee camps of Sabra and Shatila, and American news media had the pictures to prove it.
So why doesn't the news media report like that anymore? We're going to show you in just a moment. But first, let's get back to the racist chick from Stop Antisemitism. And I want to show you this clip of Candace Owens, because Candace Owens, who I don't always agree with, but I think just to kind of explain this a little bit deeper, this is the elephant in the room on the right. And you have the Candace Owenses on one side and the Ben Shapiros on the other side. So watch this clip of Candace Owens talking about what this racist Russian chick at Stop Antisemitism had to say about her.
Didn't know I was in this competition. I didn't sign up for this competition. But I am not surprised to see this, I guess. I'm up for Anti-Semite of the Year? Yeah, so there is this group. They are beyond parody at this point. It's called Stop Antisemitism. That's how I always hear it, when I stop anti-Semitism. And they just run these things. They're like, this is the anti-Semite of the week. This is the anti-Semite of the month. This is the anti-Semite of the year. This is the anti-Semite of the galaxy. I have to assume the account is being run by a teenage girl. It gives like Burn Book, like Candace said something I don't like. She's the fuggliest anti-Semite in the whole world. And they just post it. And there are adults that follow this account like, yeah. And half of the stuff they say is just a complete lie, but like I think it makes them feel good. And it's
So this is just to illustrate the hypocrisy of the MAGA crowd, right? They're, and I don't consider myself one of the MAGA crowd, but I'm definitely glad that Trump won over the continuing of, if Kamala Harris had won, all this stuff that's going on would have continued unchecked. Everyone would be patting themselves on the back. Yay, we have a girl president and she's black. Yay. As we continue to slaughter people and send billions of dollars overseas while people in North Carolina are still trying to recover from a hurricane and our infrastructure is crumbling. And it just seems like the government at large has been co-opted by interests that don't care about the United States. I wonder who.
It is peak comedy. I will say this account now is one of the things that sort of just like tripped over the anti-Semitism claims into just ridiculousness. Like I think we all just like mock it now. We're at that point. Yes. I would say Stop Antisemitism is like when we arrived at that point during BLM when Black people were peak crazy. Not everyone, not me. But we did reach this inflection point where there were people that were just saying everything was racist. So like a white girl would have her hair in a braid and they'd be like, yo, that's cultural appropriation. You hate Black people. You didn't attribute your hairstyle. I'm not kidding. This like really happened during the times of BLM. They were going around and monitoring hairstyles.
There's a very popular clip that circulated of a girl, attacking a white guy with dreadlocks as cultural appropriation. Like, at that point, everything you do is cultural appropriation. Like anyone who plays blues is racist because they're, appropriating blues from Black blues players, or anyone like John Mayer is a racist, right? Anyone who raps, Eminem, total racist. He just completely co-op. Those people give respect to Black culture as they should. Black music is American music. I mean, every form of music in America stems from, I've said this multiple times, but jazz, blues, Black music, gospel, whether it's death metal, came from blues, to rock, to metal, to, whether it's country music, came from blues and like, all that kind of stuff. So, there is a little bit of the bluegrass and stuff in country you could give to you know, the white bread Europeans, you know, the Irish and the English settlers that maybe like played the lute or something. But the vast majority of popular American music can be traced to African American roots.
It was crazy. But Black people are cool now. We're chill now. We're good. BLM has subsided. We're like voting more conservatively. And so like Jewish people are up right now, and Stop Antisemitism is like that inflection point for like hysteria. It's just literal hysteria. Everything is anti-Semitism. There's anti-Semitism around every corner. And so anyways, the account is very funny and it is beyond parody. And so they are now running, essentially asking people to vote. And this is their post. They have put up asking for people to vote. You can see, they said last year, Rashida Tlaib won. She swept with over 15,000 votes. This year, we've got Dan Bilzerian. He's got more money, so I feel like he's like buying votes. I don't know. You've got me, Jackson Hinkle, Bassem Youssef, Corey Bush, John Cusack. I don't know how we got there. Greta Thunberg, Jake Shields, Hassan Piker, Jess Natalie. I don't even know who that is. But apparently these are the 10 finalists. And like I said,
I wonder if Kanye ever made this list.
No one in high school knew what the word anti-Semitic was until Ye made it popular.
Never know how or why you're going to end up on this list. Like Bassem Youssef, I'm not surprised to see because he had what is probably the biggest pro-Palestinian interview of the year. I think it was one of those interviews that snapped everybody into like, wait, I actually don't know anything about this issue at all. I know when I saw it, I was like, wow, I had never known anything about this issue. He essentially held up this chart. He was on Piers Morgan, and he just showed every year how many Palestinians are dying compared to Israelis that are dying, being murdered rather, and was basically saying that the value of life here is that one Israeli life is worth X amount of Palestinian lives. And I'll just show you a little clip of that.
It's funny how caring about the innocent used to be like a liberal thing exclusively, and now it's definitely not a liberal thing at all.
The question is, what is a proportionate response? Because it has been different from one tier to another. So if you look to this graph, for example, this is the death of Israeli and Palestinians, and it's changing from one year to year. It's like fluctuating like crypto. So my question is today, what is the going rate today for human lives? I mean, 2014 was a great year for Ben Shapiro. 88 Israelis were died, and there was 2,329 Palestinians killed on the other side. That is one Israeli for
To be fair to him, he speaks multiple languages. I'm the idiot, I know.
27 Palestinians. That is a very good exchange rate. What I'm saying is, what is the exchange rate for today? So you guys will be happy. That's my question.
Well, it's not me. Keith Olbermann was asked this question, and here's what he had to say.
Now, I'll confess that I have licked Joe Biden's dick all the way through since 1975.
Me, guys. I'm not on either side.
No, not you. Like when I say you guys, I say like the people on the other side of that. I know that you don't think like that, Piers. You're one of the good guys. But let me tell you something. I mean, the reason that I'm using this is that I mean I can't remember what happened in 2014. And there was no music festival, but there must be something. I mean, they must do something. It is their fault. It has to be something. I mean, 2018, 300 Palestinians died. Who's counting? You know. So the thing is, what my question is, let's find what is the exchange rate for.
I don't know if he's using the correct term. He said died. The term he should have used is were killed. Not just died, because that could include like heart attacks and stuff. No, these are 300 were killed.
Human life today, so we expect the future death of Palestinians and we'll be happy to it.
Truly, that interview, I think, got something like 35 million views. It's just unheard of on YouTube. And like I said, it was a major waking up moment, I think, for a lot of people that were going, I actually just did not, I don't know what is even going on here. So it's not surprising to see Bassem Youssef on this list, but he is very excited about this. He's asking people to vote for him. Here's what he's posted on his Instagram regarding this potential award. He said, I have made it to the top 10 anti-Semites of the year. Please vote for me to win it. Dan Bilzerian and Candace are leading, and I can't lose this, guys. Go to my bio and vote for me. And he shares a link for people to vote for him. I mean, what do they expect? He's a literal comedian. And by the way, just saying, like, I kind of feel like the biggest anti-Semite, like, I feel like maybe the Prime Minister Netanyahu should have made the list because he's killed more Semites this year than anybody. We forget Palestinians are Semites? Yeah, Bassem Youssef.
Okay, I want to take a quick sidebar on something she said right there. Palestinians are Semites. This is one of my favorite clips to play, and I've played it several times. This is Israeli Jew Gene Simmons in an interview with Roger Waters talking about anti-Semitism. Listen to this.
Is in town. Roger Waters, Pink Floyd. You're obviously Jewish. He's been coming out with a lot of
Israeli.
And he's been coming out with a lot of very anti-Israel and what people perceive to be anti-Semitic comments.
I'm not sure that's the same thing.
Right. So what's your position about?
So Gene Simmons is not dumb. I'm not sure that's the same thing. Is a criticism of the American government or Donald Trump racist against Christians? No. The idea that criticism of Israel is racist against Jewish people is fucking ridiculous.
Roger Waters.
Well, first of all, he's a very talented guy. He's written some of the most wonderful music along with Floyd, many, many decades. And it's obviously held up, and he's got lots of fans. There is something to be said for keeping your political and other beliefs off the stage. His choice is to use the stage as a platform to further his point of view. There is a difference between a political statement about Israel and about anti-Semitism. By the way, anti-Semitism also involves Arabs. The definition of a Semite includes the Arab world. So I think he's a well-meaning guy. I don't agree with his...
So there you go. Gene Simmons just laid it out for you.
Difference between a political statement about Israel and about anti-Semitism. By the way, anti-Semitism also involves Arabs.
Anti-Semitism also involves
to a Palestinian. So it's very strange to think of him as being anti-Semitic, but apparently he is. He wants people to vote for him. Greta Thunberg on the list. I was like, what did Greta Thunberg do? And then I remembered hilariously, she got into hot water because I'm not laughing at like the fact, I am laughing actually, but essentially Greta Thunberg suffers from autism, and sometimes that can be like a tactile. And so she carries a stuffed animal. So people that have autistic children, like it can be sometimes sounds. It can also be like things that are tactile. I'm laughing at their response to her being with an octopus. Like, again, she has this octopus in the background because, like I said, she carries this because of it's like I said, a tactile thing. But of course, they saw that she wrote that she stands with Gaza, that she stands with innocent Palestinians. She, of course, did not say anything pro-Hamas. She is speaking about the innocent Palestinian life like we all are. But
so liberals who think Greta Thunberg is like a hero for climate change, but are, vehemently pro-war in Gaza, have to square this now with Greta Thunberg.
They decided to focus on the octopus, okay? Focus on the octopus, and Stop Anti-Semitism's website attacked her. This is what they wrote about this act of this octopus. Do you guys have that post of what, or I think I have it in here. I can probably read it. But they wrote that, give me 1 second. They wrote that Greta posed with a toy octopus, which is an anti-Jewish symbol of control that was used by the Nazis during World War II. What? This is, again, like when you just see a white girl wearing a braid and they're like, you wearing that braid, you with that octopus, you knew what you were doing.
How dare you listen to rap music?
Poor Greta. It's genuinely hilariously deluded and crazy, but that's how she ended up on Stop Anti-Semitism's list because, again, she uses that to be able to communicate her feelings. And she said that she was like, guys, I'm autistic. This is the reason I travel with it, but they didn't care. She's on the list and now she's in the running. And I also want to say, Candace's
analogy here with the BLM people who are crazy about that. I just want to say, I've never met a black person who's like that in real life. It's all online. I've never seen a black person in real life come up to someone and be like, those braids are racist. I'm sure it happens, but it's very, very rare. And much like a lot of bullshit gets amplified online by the worst people as if there's like a big outrage over it when it's really just someone dumb complaining.
To lose. So this is very hard for me because I'm not anti-Semitic at all. And I loved that there were like Jewish people in the comments that were like defending it and were like, Candace doesn't hate Jewish people. I listen to our podcast every day. But this is not a sensible account, guys. This is like a radical psychopathic account. So you can't reason with these people. And I will say this, like, I I did go through my kids' toys today, and look, I'm just gonna be honest. Notice anything crazy? Yeah. I took my son to the zoo, and 2 years ago, he picked out this octopus. So if you want to write something, stop anti-Semitism, I think the evidence is here. I don't know what a fox symbolized during World War II, and I'm not sure what this lion symbolized during World War II either. But both these are all the objects that I found into my house. So I would tell you guys to vote for me, but the problem is that they're collecting emails, and I don't really trust this organization because they're completely psychopathic. But if I win, I would like to know what it is that I'm going to win. What do I have to do to win? Do I have to say just like crazy stuff, I guess? Like, I'm just like, ooh, Palestinian kids do not deserve to die. I'll tell you something, it's even worse than that. I don't think innocent American children deserve to die. I don't think children should be killed, like in any country. Even, it's gonna be crazy, you're gonna get real upset, like innocent Iranian kids don't deserve to die. Innocent Russian kids don't deserve to die.
If I was Candace, I would have done the research on this Rez lady and pulled this up, because here you go. This is a Russian woman making racist comments at black people that runs the Stop Anti-Semitism account. And I mean, if Candace could really just be like, oh, she's a Russian spy, she's a secret Russian op sent to like take over our elections, and she'd have a valid argument to make if she did that. But just to keep moving on this, I showed you earlier the clips of, the news from 1982, and I showed you this bit from Marc Owen Jones, about how AIPAC is stalking our Congress with candidates that are backing. 190 AIPAC-backed candidates won this last cycle, so they pretty much own the Congress. But I also wanted to show you this report from Alan McLeod from Mint Press. And I didn't go through all of this, but just a couple of these examples that he calls out. This is a thread, and he says, undisclosed to the public, there are hundreds of former Israel lobbyists working in America's newsrooms, shaping the way we understand the world. My new investigation lifts the lid on this network. Something you'll never see on CNN or MSNBC for obvious reasons. So here's one. For instance, Moshe Arenstein, MSNBC's executive producer, was literally an IDF intelligence commander in his youth. That's interesting. Definitely no bias there. Here's another one. You'd never guess from Gil Malinsky's CNBC profile that she is former IDF commander and worked for years for Friends of the IDF, an American charity that raises money for supplies for Israeli soldiers. This conflict of interest isn't even disclosed when she writes about Israel. Gil Malinsky is a lead work reporter at Make It, previously on an earnings reporter at CNBC and Acorn's partnership site Grow. Her work has also appeared in the New York Times, NBC News, and Vice, among others. So Acorn, that's interesting. Remember when Acorn was like the worst thing ever, and that James O'Keefe guy exposed them? And the exposure was obviously he got sued because he went in there dressed like a pimp and kind of like slandered these Acorn employees as if they weren't going to do anything about it. They all called the cops on him. And I think one of the Acorn employees actually won a defamation suit against O'Keefe. But this lady worked for Acorn. So maybe it's not the same organization. Maybe I'm missing that. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. So here's another one. ABC News reporter, producer Beatrice Peterson worked for Israel lobby counterpiece AIPAC for over 2 years before embarking on a career in journalism. Here's her college delegate for AIPAC sticker down here. And then, of course, we have Rachel Wolf here. Rachel Wolf worked for the Israeli lobby groups Camera and the Zionist Organization of America, then became an IDF soldier and a speechwriter for Israel's permanent mission to the UN. Today, she's a producer and editor for Fox News. The real news, Fox News. Yeah. So to close this off, I want to show you a video that I would not probably show on YouTube. But since I'm on Rumble and X, free speech is alive and well. And this is what crazy people would say about the Israel lobby. And I want to, before I show this, just because I know how the internet works and how reflexive people are, a lot of my biggest heroes are Jewish. Einstein, for one, the Beastie Boys. A lot of the best rappers are Jewish. Aesop Rock, Lil Dicky. This is in no way, I think, an indictment of Jewish people any more than an indictment of, Christian zealots is an indictment of all Christianity. There are zealots in every religion. But this is a person who, has been, what's the word to use? This is basically a person who is a third rail of a person is in his entirety. And so, I just want to preface this by saying I'm not lending any credence to what he's saying, but it is interesting to hear. And this is your boy, Charles Manson. Listen to this. This is crazy.
World War's got to stop. And it's got to stop in the Jews. The Jews won't let the Second World War stop. They keep the Second World War going. They keep it going. They keep it going. They keep perpetuating it because they're making money. As soon as the Second World War was over, they never stopped the brainwash. The brainwash that they were selling the American public was making money. You see what I'm saying? They were making money. They're not going to stop making money. If the combination's there to make money, they're going to keep selling it.
So that is what crazy people would say about what's going on in our government. Only crazy people would think that things like this have any influence whatsoever over how the United States government works. You'd have to be just completely insane to believe that. The level of insanity of, like the person I just showed. So that, my friends, is the elephant in the room on the conservative side of the aisle right now. They have to grapple with this hypocrisy of being pro-free speech and also incredibly zealot and authoritarian when it comes to this one issue that both parties are, the uniparty in general is kind of supportive of. And you look at, there's a lot of criticism of Trump and RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard for kind of taking money from this lobby and, downplaying its influence. Even Tulsi Gabbard, I like Tulsi Gabbard, and I think at her core, based on the evidence in front of me, she's a good person. But you see her trying to play both sides of this issue with like, hey, I'm super Zionist and against Islam and whatever, but I'm also anti-war and Ukraine's bad. But so it's dicey. And this is something that is going to have to be borne out once they take power. And I say that because it's clear to me that a person like Donald Trump or Robert F. Kennedy Jr. or Tulsi Gabbard has to, in order to get elected to an office, you have to pay fealty to this lobby. Look how much control they have. They have 190 members of Congress. So I will give them a little bit of a benefit of the doubt on this issue, just because, can you imagine? Did you see what they did to RFK Jr.? Debbie Wasserman Schultz did an entire hearing calling him an anti-Semite. If he had been even slightly critical of Israel, he would have been smeared to no end by Stop Antisemitism and the ADL and all these ridiculous groups that
ADL is played out. Nobody knows who the ADL are. Stop giving them attention. Nobody cares about the ADL.
And the corporate press pretty much just continues what they've been doing for a long time. So we're going to move on now to a segment I like to call Reflexive Liberal Tendencies. And I don't have a lot of clips and everything. This is going to be just a lot of me yapping. But I wanted to talk about this because, the COVID thing and the Bernie movement being stomped by the Democrats and just the last 8 years of politics in general have changed me quite a bit. I used to be one of those liberals who was like, fuck the Republicans, they're fascists and they're religious tools and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Well, that has changed greatly, if you haven't noticed. And the debates have changed. You know, conservatives used to be very, very anti-abortion. And I think, you know, most of them are still very anti-abortion in their personal lives. But post-COVID, the argument can be made that my body, my choice means that no matter what the issue is, it's none of your fucking business what someone does with their body. It's their own business. And so even though conservatives can get, you know, uppity about babies, oh, baby dies, they're never upset about death in any innocent death in any other context. Gaza being a great example. And so I think a lot of the more rational conservatives, a lot of the modern conservatives are like, look, I don't believe in abortion, but my body, my choice. It's your choice. As a woman, you're the one that's going to have to deal with the consequences of that. And it's none of my business, even though I'm against it, you know. Abortion, I don't know, I've covered this multiple times. It's legal nationwide now, everywhere, by pills called mifepristone. Google it. So the point of me, you know, going back through all this is that I believe that the conservative mindset, the modern Republican Party has kind of shed a lot of the Bush era baggage that they had. You know, you see David Frum, you see Bill Kristol, you see all these John Bolton, Dick Cheney, all the absolute worst neocon minds supported Kamala Harris. And so now you have a little bit more of an open debate on the Republican side. And just, again, their views have changed so much that you can't really apply the standards of, you know, I mean, you can apply the standards of, you know, the early 2000s against them now, and they don't hold because all of those Bush era Republicans are on the Democratic side now. So what you have here is kind of a switching of the parties. And what upsets me about this is I see a lot of reflexive liberal tendencies. And I talked about this a little bit with, for example, Daryl Cooper, the guy who does the Martyr Made podcast. The guys from Do Dissidents and a bunch of other liberals instantly reflexively called this guy a Nazi and a racist because of a tweet that he did where he said, this is preferable to this. And he had a picture of Hitler and a picture of the drag queens or whatever. And okay, that is a bad post, but that doesn't mean the guy's a Nazi. He's obviously being a troll. And when you listen to that guy's content, you listen to his podcast about the Israel experiment and how deferential he is and how fair he is to the Palestinian cause, you understand why he's being smeared as a Nazi by these same interests that I just covered, the Stop Antisemitism. But reflexive liberal tendencies are like, oh, he's a Nazi. He said this, so he's a Nazi. Keaton and Russ have never listened to a Martyr Made podcast. They just went on their show and went, that guy's a racist because I saw a thing he said. Those are reflexive liberal tendencies. Those are the types of tendencies of the past that we need to get rid of. And I just got into a thing with Katie Halper, not necessarily into a thing, but she's talking about what's his name? Jake Shields. Again, very critical of Israel to a level that maybe I wouldn't go to, but he talked to David Duke, and so now he's a racist. And I just pointed out how David Duke came out and endorsed Jill Stein. So what does that mean? And they're like, well, you know, of course he would. He's anti-Zionist or whatever. No, like, why wouldn't he endorse Trump if he's a white supremacist? The whole narrative is that Trump's a white supremacist. And yet David Duke comes out and endorses Jill Stein. That stinks like clown shit to me. David Duke seems like a fucking op. Like he's the guy they trot out that they can associate with someone to call him a racist. And again, this is the reflexive liberal tendencies, you know, David Duke, oh, I remember him from the past. He's bad. So anyone talks to him is bad. They're bad. Everyone's bad if they. And the point I made too is there are plenty of people who talk to Nazis and are able to kind of convert them away from their racist attitudes. And I used to, don't get me wrong, I used to be one of those people who was like, punch a Nazi, you know. But then again, who's a fucking Nazi? Who's telling? If the ADL is telling you someone's a Nazi, that's I would double check that, you know. So one of the biggest examples of reflexive liberal tendencies that I've seen in recent years is Elon Musk. And Elon Musk is literally saving the planet with his cars. He made electric cars sexy with Tesla. The guy flies rockets. he's always been a liberal-minded guy. You know, he's based in California. And all of a sudden, because he got over the target, now liberals hate him reflexively. Everything he does is terrible. And listen, there's an argument to be made that on Twitter, he pops up in your feed every time. You're like, wait a minute, Elon, you control Twitter. And why are you always in everyone's feed? You know, that's a fair criticism. But again, the idea that this guy's like the devil suddenly is a reflexive liberal tendency. And just to give you a very clear example of these reflexive liberal tendencies, I got this clip of PBD kind of going over. Bill Maher had a conversation with Neil deGrasse Tyson, the space guy. And just listen to this. It's so fucking pathetic because it's clearly these reflexive fucking liberal tendencies. And this guy just has to be against Elon Musk because he's for Trump. Has nothing to do with any kind of basis in reality or any of the things that Elon has done. It's all based on this guy's associated with Trump, so he's bad. It's fucking stupid.
So here's Eric posting. Eric, Rob, can you zoom in a little bit for me to see the last time? I want to give credit. Abenante, he posts his tweet on November 22nd. It's an exchange between Maher and Neil deGrasse Tyson. Elon at the top responds and says the following. He says, wow, they really don't get it. Mars is critical to the long-term survival of consciousness. Also, I'm not going to ask any venture capitalists for money. I realize that it makes no sense as an investment. That's why I'm gathering resources. Play the clip, Rob. This is another one. Watch this, folks.
I want you to pay close attention to what Neil deGrasse Tyson says, too, because he kind of exposes himself as a vessel of the fucking state here.
How soon could Elon Musk realistically send humans to Mars? Another good question.
I have strong views on that. My read of the history of space exploration is such that we do big, expensive things only when it's geopolitically expedient, such as we feel threatened by an enemy. And
yeah, so because historically that's the only way we can do it. What a fucking dipshit. And again, it's like we need to manufacture a threat. If we want to do big things, we have to be fighting someone. That is a dead mentality, Neil. And you need to get with the times, buddy. This ain't 1973.
so for him to just say, let's go to Mars because it's the next thing to do, what does that venture capitalist meeting look like? So, Elon, what do you want to do? I want to go to Mars. How much will it cost? $1 trillion. Is it safe? No, people will probably die. What's the return on the investment? Nothing. That's a 5-minute meeting and it doesn't happen. So
we can't do big things because we're scared and we need to. Again, this is reflexive fucking liberal bullshit. And it's and I've come around on this over the years, thankfully, where I can just see these partisan hacks. They're just against it because it's not a Democrat doing it. It's fucking pathetic.
So we agree. I'm not for going to Mars.
Okay, wait. I got nothing against Mars. What I'm saying is, here's how we get to Mars, right? China leaks a memo. Doesn't even have to be true. They leak a memo that they want to put military bases on Mars.
Right.
Then we're on Mars in 10 months, but NASA doesn't have a spacecraft, but Elon does. Here's my spacecraft to Mars, and we end up paying him to use his spaceship to get to Mars. And that'd be easy for China because Mars is already red, right? So that'd be an easy sell.
So, he's basically saying we need to manufacture a fake threat if we really want to spend money on this. Kind of like we did in Ukraine and Vietnam and Iraq and Afghanistan and every other fucking country that we've dumped billions and billions of dollars for criminals to launder into.
That'd be an easy sell. Okay? That's how. So I don't see it happening until governments judge that it's geopolitically.
So there you go, Elon. If you're listening, you need to have Trump's team manufacture a fake memo that says China is trying to build bases on Mars, and then you'll get government funding. Watch for that in 2025 or 2026, guys.
In our interest. Otherwise, I don't see it as just an
I don't know. He's gone from a scientist to a nut, and apparently he only owns one tie.
One tie that has the galaxy on it, and now he's anti space exploration.
I mean, that could be the branding thing that he's doing. I don't have a problem with that. But what I will tell you with this is,
So this is, I love the follow-up clip here because, again, it just shows you how fucking terrible these people are. Elon Musk, love him or hate him, the guy has a track record of running successful businesses. You know, he built PayPal, he built Tesla, he's built SpaceX. He took over Twitter and is effectively. I think this is the funny thing about Twitter, and hate me if you want, but remember when he announced that he took over Twitter and he announced that you could pay for blue checks, and the entire media shit on him. Oh, no, pay for blue checks. The blue check, you pay for it. Now every goddamn social media company charges for blue checks. Instagram, Facebook, you name it. YouTube. Actually, YouTube might not, but all the fucking social media companies followed his lead after they made fun of him.
You know the clip when Elon is in tears crying because the guys that were his heroes were laughing at him, and he says, how do you feel about are some of these your heroes? Yes, and he's getting emotional, right? Oh, really? Yeah, it's actually an incredible clip to watch. And I've showed this clip to my my sons multiple times. The bottom left. No, Rob, go back. You just had it. Go back.
It was on his
it's
documentary.
The bottom left. That one right
Netflix.
there. Right there. Go ahead. You can turn on the audio. Go for it.
Are American heroes who don't like this idea. Neil Armstrong, Gene Cernan have both testified against commercial spaceflight and the way that you're developing it. And I wonder what you think of that.
I was very sad to see that because those guys are, those guys are heroes of mine, so it's really tough. I wish they would come and visit and see the hardware that we're doing here. And I think that would change their mind.
Look at that.
They inspired you to do this, didn't they?
Yes.
What cunts? Seriously, it's like, you're like, this guy's trying to do big things and everyone's just shitting on him. Fuck you. Go to Mars. What's wrong with you? Why not? Why not do something big and positive that doesn't involve the deaths of thousands and thousands of people? A couple of people might die in the testing, just like they did in the space program and the Apollo fucking program. It's a dangerous, that's what you sign up for. It's like joining the military. When you join up to be an astronaut, there's a risk you could die. It's like being a cop. You join up to be a policeman. There's a risk you could get shot. You join up to fight a war. There's a risk you could get bombed or shot. It's part of the program, but it's not going to cost an entire civilian population's lives to, start working on manned missions to Mars. And you look at the things that the previous space programs have produced as byproducts, like Tang, or a lot of the scientific advancements that have come from trying to do those big things, that we all benefit from. So this is just, again, I hate this reflexive liberal tendency to just hate something without any evidence because that's what the chattering heads are saying, and it's like, it was like that with Daryl Cooper. It's like that with Elon Musk. And this is what they're doing now that Trump's got elected. All they can do is gin up anger amongst the public at these people. And so with Elon Musk, nothing this guy says is going to be okay because he just helped usurp the power structure via Twitter, via his support for Trump, and so they all hate him. And it's evident when you have the space guy Neil deGrasse Tyson going, wow. We can't do that unless we manufacture a Chinese threat. Thanks for letting us know who you are, Neil. Thank you. Moving on. I wanted to talk about this because it's just fucking ridiculous. I was watching Joe Rogan interview that guy, Marc Andreissen, and there was a point in their conversation where they started talking about UFOs, and that Marc Andreissen guy had this to say about the Chinese spy balloon incident, which is one of my favorite things to revisit because it's just an example of how ridiculously knee-jerk the American public is. You just have to put something on the news and people are like, oh my God, it's a real threat. Watch this.
Drones, and that's what these people are seeing, and this is one of the reasons why they continually have sightings over secured military spaces. Like,
So Rogan's talking about how UFOs are military experiments, which I've always pretty much believed to be the case.
Out in the eastern seaboard, like there's areas over Virginia where they continually see them. In San Diego, they see them off the coast of San Diego, where there's a place where you would test stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, so of course, we know that was the case for a very long time, for sure, from the 50s through the 80s, because the development of stealth was highly classified, and the SR-71 was brand new.
So that's interesting. He's saying that the UFOs that we're seeing in the 70s and 80s were because of the development of stealth technology.
Interesting. One point, and so you had these alien. Do
you pay attention to any of that stuff?
Of course, 100%. Yeah, and then by the way, we're not the only ones, and so I my speculation would be that some of the military-based stuff is the Chinese doing something similar.
Yes.
And we got a glimpse into that with the balloon.
That thing was goofy though.
They got shut down, but still,
I thought this guy was smart until he went in on this.
The Chinese are flying surveillance balloons over American territory, and they were able to slip through our early warning systems and just loiter above military bases and take lots of
If you think that fucking balloon was a spy op, you're a fucking moron. I'm sorry. Why would China send a balloon to spy on the United States when they have chips in our phone, backdoor access to the chips in our phones, the chips in our routers? They manufacture a large portion of our military equipment. I've been screaming about this for about a year now. People are like, oh, China is such a threat, but they also manufacture a lot of our military equipment. Listen to this moron.
Imagery and do whatever scans they do.
Yeah.
And literally nothing was happening, and we didn't even know they were there most of the time. And so I would say that's like a tip of the ice. It feels like a tip of the iceberg kind of thing, where if they were doing that, there are probably other things going on.
They weren't doing that. Okay, so I'm going to take a quick sidebar here while I get a cup of coffee and show you a video I made a while back. I think I played it at the end of the last episode, but I'm going to play it again. It's Aaron Mate, Balloon Boys. And Aaron Mate lays out why this guy's a moron right here.
Well, should we hear more from Mr. McCall?
Yeah, definitely.
He's a balloon boy, by the way. He's one of the balloon boys because he was one of those Republicans who was advocating higher military spending after the U.S. shut down a balloon, a Chinese weather balloon, and then 3 hobbyist balloons. And then he was one of the Republicans who was saying that Biden is weak on China and we need to spend more money on the military. So I call him a balloon boy. So
I'm just gonna show you some of the clips from this because it just shows you how wild these
causing any casualties or any concerns on U.S. soil. The fact that we've allowed this to enter U.S. airspace is a direct result of the fact that Joe Biden is just weak, and he's viewed as weak on a global scale.
Balloon boy.
I knew at least a day before it entered U.S. airspace what it was going to be doing, and had the opportunity to shoot it down. Did not. It entered the U.S. through Idaho, traveled through the middle of the country, over some very sensitive and important military installations, some of the most.
So at the end of this clip, this video, I put in some clips of, first of all, listen to Biden right here. This is just a reminder of how this guy is. But I put in a couple news clippings at the end of this. I want to show on the graph.
Balloon boy.
Briefed on the balloon. I ordered the Pentagon to shoot it down on Wednesday as soon as possible. They decided, without doing damage to anyone on the ground, they decided that the best time to do that was as it got over water outside within the 12-mile limit.
I want to talk to you.
Who did it, and we'll have more to report on this a little later. Thank you.
Because what did they say about China? What's the message to China?
Look how senile he sounds in that clip, and that's from like early in the Biden administration.
Balloon boy.
Here we go. This is from CNET a long time ago. U.S. finds Huawei has backdoor access to mobile networks globally, report says. So do you think China is really sending spy balloons to spy on us when they have backdoor access to literally all of our equipment that's manufactured there? That's a really dumb thing. And the weather balloon was clearly used as like a propaganda op to gin up more like militaristic fervor against China. We need a war with China now. As Neil deGrasse Tyson said, leak a memo that says China's trying to build bases on Mars and we'll throw zillions of dollars at it. That's how this works. So these guys came out and pretended that this spy balloon was some kind of a military op so they could go on TV and suck dicks for the fucking Lockheed Martins and Raytheons of the world and get that sweet, sweet donor money. That's how I see it, and I think I'm seeing it correctly. All right, I want to talk about one more thing before I sign off today, and that is Make America Healthy Again. Tucker Carlson recently had Dr. Marc Hyman on his show, and they talked about, Dr. Marc Hyman has been on this stuff for a long time and is actually friends with RFK. So I want to show you a little bit of this Tucker Carlson interview he did, and we're going to talk about it.
And we need a focused effort. And I think there's so many things that could be done in this administration.
Okay, so tell us about Bobby Kennedy, who for viewers who haven't followed this for a long time, you've known him for a long time. You wrote a book with him. He's not just like some guy you met at a cocktail party.
No.
You know him really well.
Well, he's a guy with a brain worm who kills elephants and gorillas and bears, and he does falconry, and he's evil. And I'm a liberal who suddenly hates a Kennedy for reasons that I have no idea about. I've just been brainwashed to hate him by the press.
You told me at dinner last night you were just staying with him.
Yeah.
Do you want to say where you're staying? Because I thought it was hilarious.
Oh, we were staying at Dr. Oz's house.
Okay. So we got Marc Hyman, Bobby Kennedy. Were the Meanses there too?
Callie was there.
Yeah. Callie Means and Dr. Oz all staying together.
So I'm not the biggest fan of Dr. Oz, but those people, the Callie and Casey Means and RFK are I was listening to Callie and Casey Means before they even became involved with RFK in the Trump campaign, and they're preaching the gospel.
Yeah, it was.
So it's a conspiracy of light, I would say. But anyway, you know Bobby really well, personally and professionally. What do you think his strengths are going into this job?
I think he has the right focus and perspective, which is that we have a crisis, which is our chronic disease epidemic. It's been neglected by the scientific community predominantly. It's been neglected by the federal government. It's bankrupting us. It's causing destruction of our environment, of our social structures, of our academic competitive and global competitiveness, of our military. And he understands that these needs to be addressed. And so I think that's a huge strength. I think he wants to focus on rooting out corruption, rooting out conflicts of interest in agencies. I think he wants to implement policies that are going to transform the health of America. And we're working on a whole series of different ideas, but I think the NIH needs to be reformed. They should basically fund nutrition research around chronic disease, which
and now we have Jay Battacharya that's going to be in there.
They don't. Very small amount of money goes to
Really?
that.
They still don't.
5%, but it's 80% of the diseases we're seeing. They should have a mandate, for example, that all medical schools and academic institutions that receive federal funding from any source should have a nutrition curriculum, and that it should be mandated. And there's a reason for that, because doctors graduating today, my daughter's in medical school, she's in 4th year medical school, not a single thing on nutrition. I'm like, what did you learn? Well, I learned about amino acids and fatty acids. I mean, what are you going to tell your patient to have for lunch? And so zero education, that could be changed.
Was that true when you were in medical school?
Of course. Yeah. I learned about, kwashiorkor.
Food is medicine. And again, I think this is interesting because, well, maybe not again, but the COVID pandemic was clearly, I don't want to say, I'll say hyped to a degree beyond what it was. And I don't think that when they pulled that, they were expecting the backlash that they're going to get. But I think a lot of the reason Trump won is because of that incident and the results of it. And I would even go so far as to say, I think it was hyped for the purpose of getting Trump out of office. And, that's for entertainment purposes only, but I'm not on YouTube, so I feel empowered to say that, to speak that truth. And people who don't see that, the unskeptical fools, this is what they look like.
But ain't that America for you and me? Ain't that America?
Doris Core, marasmus, and rickets, and serothalmia, all these rare diseases from vitamin deficiencies in Africa and protein malnutrition.
Berry.
Yeah, berry, and pellagra. I'm like, I never seen any of that. You know, like I didn't see any of that. So I think I did see some malnutrition when I was in Haiti, but it was, you know, really, really rare. And what we're not doing this. The NIH could do a lot. And then the HHS could fund with Medicare nutrition services in medicine, which it doesn't pay for now. So if you have diabetes or heart disease or diet-caused diseases, very hard to get nutrition services. And we at Cleveland Clinic.
And the reason for that is because they can sell you drugs. And I went into this in my last stream about how many things are controlled by the ability to sell you the cure. And, you know, I travel, I shouldn't say I travel, but I drive around a lot. I'm constantly interacting with different people all over the city all the time. And there are definitely an excess of extremely overweight people in poor neighborhoods. I can see it with my own eyes. I drove a woman the other day, very nice woman, but probably 300 pounds, could barely walk and stunk. Like, I don't even know if she knows she stunk. And she was a nice woman, so I wasn't gonna be like, hey, you need to take a bath. But it's like, I see these kind of people all the time. And there are people that are, the only reason they're disabled is because they're so fat, you know, and that's an American thing. And when did that start? And why is it happening? Well, it's because the subsidies in our food system go to completely terrible chemical products like high fructose corn syrup and, you know, all these like processed soy oils and all these terrible things. And so there is and the reason I started going off on this is one of the things we talked about last week with Dr. Berg is the food that's served to people in hospitals, the food that's served to kids in school lunch. It's all subsidized and made ultra cheap. And there was a point in that where Dr. Berg said the corn that they use to make, you know, corn chips, Doritos, and you know, corn syrup and all these things, it's called dent corn, and it has zero nutritional value, and they feed it to cattle to fatten them. So that is our food system is larded up with this cheap, profitable, unhealthy shit. And just like almost every problem in America, the reason we cannot fix it is because someone's making money off the problem. And the second reason we can't fix it is because of what I just covered, reflexive liberal tendencies, because they've been brainwashed into thinking this is how good the propaganda is. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a well-respected liberal with a Kennedy name, is now a demon to the Democrats. That's how good the fucking propaganda is. They don't even know why. Oh, he has a brain worm. He did something with the bear, whale carcass. I heard a ton of stories about what a kook he is. Why is he a kook? Well, he might actually be effective in changing something. And again, I just can't say enough about reflexive liberal tendencies. And people who clearly haven't learned anything over the last 8 years, these ops are used to demonize people who might be saying otherwise useful things or making valid points. And again, they did this to Trump. They did it to Bernie Sanders. He was a racist misogynist as soon as he got close to power. And so I implore my liberal friends to step back and make sure that you have hard evidence before you call someone a Nazi or a pedophile or a racist. I want to see hard evidence because I don't buy it anymore. And unless there's hard evidence, I'm not with you. I think you're being fucking stupid. And again, it's a tactic that's being used to keep things from changing.
And to create a lifestyle change program where we got people to, to work together to change their behavior and change lifestyle. It was based on the sort of work I did with Rick Warren and Saddleback Church, where we got 15,000 people to lose 250,000 pounds in a year by actually getting healthy together. So really it's about behavior change and also what to do. So they changed what was in the refineries. They got rid of the pancake breakfast, the ice cream socials. They got everybody jogging for Jesus. It was great. And then they lost a lot of weight. Rick lost a ton of weight. They got healthy. And we showed how people doing this in groups actually works. And this could be funded by the federal government.
Well, schools used to do that.
Yeah.
I don't think they do anymore.
No.
It's funny because I thought Michelle Obama, when Obama was president, this was kind of her initiative. Like she was trying to be healthy, but now Michelle Obama is literally selling sugared diabetes drinks through her company, so she's been co-opted.
And so we know actually how to change behavior. We know how to change these chronic diseases with food, and that needs to be funded. So like I said, we don't have evidence-based medicine. We have reimbursement-based medicine. There's a company called Virta that reverses type 2 diabetes in 60% of their patients using a ketogenic diet. They do it with a continuous care online model. They reverse all the biomarkers for heart disease. They get those better. They have about 12% weight loss.
Can you separate this? So they reverse 60% of diagnosed type 2?
Yeah, fairly advanced type 2 diabetes.
Like insulin dependent?
100%. They get 100% off the medication, the main medication for diabetes. They get 90+% off.
When is, pardon me.
They save $6,000.
So what I love about this the most, and we can stop there, is that this was a passion of mine even before it became part of the Trump campaign, Make America Healthy Again. And I've said this thousands of times, but probably maybe hundreds. But I was on this journey before it became a political thing, and I can speak to what he's saying about keto diet and how much it changed my life. Go back and look at old videos of me on my channel. You can see the fat in my face. You can see the bloating. You can see how unhealthy I was, and there's a slow transformation, and I feel it. So I'm very excited about this, and I hope that reflexive liberal tendencies don't sink this effort to improve our health system, and that RFK and all these people get confirmed to posts in the administration. So the last thing I want to show you, which I accidentally skipped, is Eric Weinstein was on Trigonometry, and he said something that just stuck in my head because he explained the way that our government has worked for the last, 100 years or so with precise accuracy, precision. And I just want to play this kind of as a closeout before we go to some funnier clips and end the show. But I don't think anyone has summed up what's going on in our government as well as Eric Weinstein does right here.
I think it's the international agreements, NATO, NAFTA, trade rounds, and anything that basically requires huge coordination with other countries is a problem in a democracy, because the democracy can always revisit these things every 4 years. And so, in essence, we have a permanent foreign policy establishment that plays keep-away ball with the American public to try to make sure that you always get two candidates who are going to continue the agreements so that our allies don't think that we're wobbly, and our foes know that we mean business, and it's not going to be put at risk every 4 years with a populist. And Donald Trump was particularly hated in 2016 for different reasons. The reason Washington freaked out about him, in my opinion, was that nobody knew whether he was going to continue the agreements.
Yeah. I just love the way that he summed that up, though, the keep away ball thing, because that's exactly, it's just the accurate description of what the uniparty is. They've always had the ability to control the parameters of the debate within the two parties. Oh, this person's okay, this person's not. John Kerry's okay, Howard Dean is not. George Bush is okay, Bob Dole is not. This is something that they've done for years. And they tried to do it in the Republican primary this year with people like Nikki Haley. They tried to put her over. They tried to put over Ron DeSantis, because these guys will play nice. They know that they can be. Trump, for all his faults, is a wild card. He might not listen to these people. And again, that is why they used every tactic possible to try and prevent him from getting back in there, from suing him, shooting at him, defaming him in the media. And he still managed to get around it. And I go back to this point time and time again. But Bernie Sanders got close to power. He won the Democratic primary twice and was nixed both times. And as soon as he got in the mix, he was a racist, he was a Russian, he was a misogynist. They ran all that shit. Imagine if he had told the Democrats to fuck off and stayed in the race. Who knows what they would have done to him? maybe taken shots at him, but definitely smeared him in the press even harder as an anti-Semite or, a communist or whatever. And going back to that elephant in the room thing, it's just, this is something that conservatives are going to have to figure out, because there are a lot of dumb people on the right that think that the Democrats are communists. Yeah, Dick Cheney, John Bolton, and the establishment support communists. You're a fucking idiot. You're as big of a fucking idiot if you think the Democrats are communist as you are if you think the Republicans are fascists. It's the same reductionist, stupid, water-headed argument. The Democrats are a right-wing party, and thank God that the Republican Party has kind of shifted the way it has, because now at least we have some kind of a chance at changing things. And again, I'll reserve my skepticism. I don't think Trump is a savior, and by picking people like Pam Bondi and some of the other neocons like Marco Rubio that he's chosen for his administration, he's kind of proven that. But again, we're gonna see, because putting someone like Kash Patel at FBI is a giant fuck you to the neocon establishment. Putting someone like Tulsi Gabbard at DNI is a giant fuck you to the establishment. Putting someone like Jay Battacharya at NIH is a gigantic fuck you to the Faucis of the world. And so there is a glimmer of hope here. And, despite my friends on the left who want to dunk on MAGA because Trump is nominating some neocons, hey, look, how many thousands of people does he have to nominate for his administration? I think it's something like 10,000. So there are going to be some shitty people in there. There's just no getting around it. But what gives me hope is not only that Trump has been kind of doing these fuck you to the establishment appointments, but also that people like Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson have a direct line to Trump and his administration and RFK. RFK is friends with the Joe Rogan comedy clan, the Tim Dillons, the Theo Vaughns of the world. And it's that, to me, regardless of what you've been brainwashed to think about RFK Jr., is a good thing. So speaking of Tim Dillon, let's end with some funny shit. Tim Dillon did this bit where, okay, Russia launched these ICBM missiles. They're the newest technology. And this should be very fucking scary, but the press isn't covering it. So I love what Tim Dillon did here, and I'm just gonna play this clip for you, and we'll talk about it. I kind of slopped this show together this week. I was a little shell shocked when YouTube banned me, but I figured, you know what, I'm not gonna let that stop me from doing my show. And so, thanks to Twitter, I paid Twitter. I paid for Twitter again, because YouTube can fuck off. And I have a premium membership with YouTube that I'm probably going to cancel, because I'm not going to support, that kind of censorship. And say what you want about Elon Musk. There may be shadow banning. There may be, most of the stuff I played today that was edgy is stuff that's on Twitter. So as for all Twitter's faults, you're at least allowed to show footage that criticizes, the skirmish in the Middle East, that criticizes things that if I posted any of that shit on Facebook, I would be banned immediately. I had a picture of that guy with the COVID mask over his face as my profile picture for a minute. And every 2 minutes, someone was banned. I was banned from Facebook and had to get my account reinstated. That's how fucking ridiculous these people are. But anyway, watch this clip this is the clip that I guarantee you would not make it on Facebook. The whole point of me setting this up is this is the kind of hilarious sidebar that also informative if you haven't seen it.
This is the first ICBM used in the history of war. I'm sorry, in the history of this war. Oh, wait, any war? The view of the intercontinental ballistic missile used today by Russia with multiple re-entry warheads on a city in Ukraine. It's possibly the first use of an ICBM in the history of war. Take a look at this. It is a beautiful, and by the way, send this to everyone as an e-card for Thanksgiving. Send it to them as an e-card for Thanksgiving. Take a look. Can you play non-copyrighted holiday music while this happens?
Yeah, I'll put it up on YouTube.
Because I think it's about attitude, and I think it's about the way we present something. I don't think it's about the raw facts. I think it's all the way you look at it.
I love Tim Dillon for stuff like this.
Perspective is reality. Is there a way to make Russia firing an ICBM, can we make it feel jolly? Can we make it feel nice? Do we have to focus on the negative aspects of it? You know, I mean, listen, remember when they were running articles in New York Times going, you know, nuclear war has some benefits and maybe everybody should get over their fear of nuclear war. And we're going to pull that article up in a minute, but they're genuinely sick people who are saying, well, nuclear war maybe wouldn't be the worst thing. So here we're going to play a little non-copyrighted Christmas music. Ooh, I like that. Now get the ICBM up. Well, this is nice. Now it feels like the Christmas show. This doesn't scare me anymore. It feels like a light show for the holidays. Keep playing that missile. I like this missile. This is a holiday missile. This is not a bad missile at all. What if they did it and it lit up the sky with like Frosty the Snowman? It's all about the way you look at it, folks. Nuclear war is a good reset. I think people in this country have decided in small rooms or in forests or wherever they meet and talk that nuclear war is actually a nice reset. It might get rid of a few of you mouth breathers who keep complaining you don't have enough money for canned food.
So a couple of things about this. First of all, if the United States had missiles like that, you would see it in our media. It'd be on every channel. Look at these amazing missiles we have. We don't have these missiles. Russia has them. But I also want to just revisit reflexive liberal tendencies and show you a clip of Kimmy Jimmel crying about the Ukraine and NATO funding. That funding is going to start World War III, and hopefully these neocons don't do it before Trump gets into office. I sincerely hope. It's criminal that they're allowed to do this after they were voted out. They have 2 more months to pull levers before the new administration comes in. But watch Kimmy Jimmel get choked up about Ukraine. Fucking reflexive.
Let's be honest. It was a terrible night last night. It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go. For healthcare, for our climate, for science, for journalism, for justice, for free speech. It was a terrible night for poor people, for the middle class, for seniors who rely on Social Security, for our allies in Ukraine, for NATO, for the troops.
What a goddamn tool. So again, I implore my liberal friends, please back away from these reflexive liberal tendencies and make sure you have hard evidence that someone is a racist or a Nazi or an anti-Semite before you jump to those claims. Just to revisit the earlier piece, I want to play this again because this is a clip I made about how I see the war in the Middle East. And this is from a comedy show, and at the time it was funny, but it's actually painfully accurate of what's going on right now. And so check this out. This is from a show, an 80s TV show called Sledgehammer, that was a comedy about a batshit cop.
Sledgehammer! All right, what's going on? I gotta get to work. I've got a sniper on that roof. Control is requested. Over. Hammer, what are you doing? You'll get killed!
I think I got him. I think that should be the catchphrase for the IDF. I think I got him. We just leveled an entire block. I think we got a terrorist. Jesus. All right. Well, that's pretty much all the stories I have to cover today. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for following me, and like and subscribe, all that shit. But this politics show is going to continue regardless of whether YouTube wants it to or not. And I am, again, incredibly thankful for X and Rumble. And like I said, I just paid for X again. I paid for a year. They're doing a special right now just so I could stream live to it. And I regardless of what I think about Elon Musk, he provides a venue to share this kind of information, whether it's shadow banned or not. There is no other place, there, aside from maybe Rumble and a couple of other outlets, that will allow you to speak freely about these issues that affect all of us. And so I'm just really grateful for that. And I want to close out today with one of my another one of my music videos. And since we are in the land of uncensored, I might even just play a couple of them. Let's see what we got here. I really want to play this piece that I did about the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, because it's like one of those things. It's one of those issues that's kind of tedious, and I think that this makes it a little more interesting. If I can find it. All right, well, I'm going to play it, but I'm going to start with something that I have right here. I'm going to find it, but in the meantime, here's to open the ending up. This is my Rachel Maddow Liberal Boogeyman remix, Federal Asset remix. And it's back when there was a protest of the Ukraine war, and Rachel Maddow went in hard on smearing the protesters. And so enjoy this. Thank you again for staying on with me, and drop a comment. Correct me if I'm wrong, all that good stuff. And I will see you again next week, maybe even on YouTube. Peace.
Truly random rally on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. A rally in support of Russia, I guess, given all the Russian flags. At least a rally against the U.S. supporting Ukraine in trying to stand up against the Russian invasion of their country. This was a tiny event. It was small. It was a weird assemblage of Americans. There were Proud Boys there. There were Proud Boys there. Anti-vaccine conspiracy theorists. Tucker Carlson. Cryptocurrency promoters. There were a lot of people with Russian flags, also the occasional flag of the former Soviet Union. There were anti-vaccine conspiracy theorists, a lot of them. It was a really weird group. It was a small rally and a weird one. But that's what it looks like. That's the assemblage of short straws and split ends and loose change and loose electrons that's advocating in this country that Russia's in the right in this war and America should be on Putin's side as he keeps invading other countries. There were anti-vaccine conspiracy theorists, a lot of them. There were Proud Boys there. Anti-vaccine conspiracy theorists. Boys there. There were Proud Boys there. People with Russian flags. There were Proud Boys there.
Our Congress passed a bill that legalized propaganda.
There was a modernization of a law back in 2013 that allowed for domestic dissemination of state-funded media. 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 So that would be what I believe in potential violation of what's called the Smith-Mundt Act. Potential violation of what's called the Smith-Mundt Act. So that would be what I believe in potential violation of what's called the Smith-Mundt Act. Domestic dissemination of state-funded media. Potential violation of what's called the Smith-Mundt Act. Smith-Mundt Act. The Smith-Mundt Act. The Smith-Mundt Act. The Smith-Mundt Act. There was a modernization of a law back in 2013 that allowed for domestic dissemination of state-funded media. 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 There was a modernization of a law back in 2013 that allowed for domestic dissemination of state-funded media. What I believe in potential violation of what's called the Smith-Mundt Act. Domestic dissemination of state-funded media.